Omicron is the word on everyone's lips right now. You're reading about it in WhatsApp forwards. But obviously, India Today is the only channel that's keeping you abreast with the fastest and, most importantly, most accurate updates. Don't believe many of the half-truths that are being peddled by a lot of the media. On India Today, we make sure all information goes through every single filter so you can make conscious and informed decisions about what you want to do. The World Health Organization has raised the alarm over this new variant of concern called Omicron. Top health body of the world has said global risks related to Omicron are very high and it is a matter of great concern. The WHO has asserted that depending on Omicron's characteristics, there could be future surges of COVID-19, and all this just when the world thought it was seeing the last of the pandemic. Top health body has also added that Omicron could have severe consequences depending on a number of factors, including where surges may actually take place. According to the WHO, Omicron is highly divergent with a high number of mutations, some of which are concerning and may be associated with immune escape potential and higher transmissibility. However, studies are also currently underway to determine if the current existing prevalent vaccines that you and I have taken are effective against Omicron, and how transmissible is this variant really?
We don't yet know whether Omicron is associated with more transmission, more severe disease, more risk of reinfections, or more risk of evading vaccines. Scientists at WHO and around the world are working urgently to answer these questions. We shouldn't need another wake-up call. We should all be wide awake to the threat of this virus.
Now let's take a look at where all this new COVID variant Omicron has spread so far. We're tracking the Omicron variant wherever it is in the world. And so this is the latest, I guarantee you the latest information. South Africa, Botswana, which is just north of South Africa, Germany, Hong Kong, the United Kingdom, Israel, Italy, the Czech Republic, the Netherlands, and now also Australia, Belgium, Canada, Singapore, Zimbabwe, New Zealand, Mauritius, obviously China, Bangladesh, and Brazil. No cases have so far been identified in India, but there are testings that are happening in different parts of the country that may bring out some bad news. But at this point of time, no Omicron cases in India. This was a variant that was discovered in southern Africa earlier this month. The Omicron variant of the coronavirus has an already stressed world even more worried. So if you've made holiday plans and you're wondering now about whether this is going to completely disrupt your plans, listen up, because I'm going to give you information you can use. This variant is believed to be spreading faster than the most powerful variant before it, the Delta variant. Here's an explainer on the Omicron variant. Listen very carefully. This is information that will impact how you navigate the next few days and weeks.
Stock markets plummet. Global economy is in a tailspin. World Health Organization calls it a variant of concern. Countries re-implement travel bans. Scientific community says new strain is horrific. It's happening all over again. A new variant of coronavirus, now named Omicron, has set alarm bells ringing across the world. So, with this bolt from the blue, are we back to square one in our fight against COVID-19? Here's what we know about the new variant, Omicron. B.1.1.529 or Omicron was first identified in South Africa. The World Health Organization has classified it as a variant of concern now. Scientists say the new variant carries a high number of mutations in its spike protein. In the new variant, there were 50 mutations overall, with more than 30 on the spike protein. This is what the World Health Organization has had to say about this variant.
Based upon the information that we have, particularly from South Africa, they have advised WHO that this variant should be classified as a variant of concern. So today we are announcing B11529 as a variant of concern named Omicron.
Where did it come from? The new strain Omicron, a B.1.1.529, was first identified or detected in South Africa. There have been close to 100 fully confirmed cases in the Gauteng province of South Africa. A theory suggests that this new variant is likely to have evolved during a chronic infection of an immunocompromised person. Is the new variant more lethal then? Researchers are trying to confirm whether the new variant with 50 mutations is more transmissible or lethal. The WHO has called for caution in the initial stages of dealing with this variant. It could affect transmissibility, disease severity, immune escape, diagnostic or therapeutic escape. It can also cause community transmission or clusters. This variant has a large number of mutations, some of which are concerning. Preliminary evidence suggests an increased risk of reinfection with this variant. How many cases of the new variant have been recorded then? Well, there have been 77 fully confirmed cases in the Gauteng province in South Africa. There are indications that show that 90% of cases in Gauteng may already be of this variant. Alarm was also raised after cases recorded in South Africa jumped from 200 to 2,465 within 7 days. The number of cases of this variant appears to be increasing in almost all provinces in South Africa. Researchers are still looking into the data on deaths caused by the variant. The rise comes following weeks of relatively low transmissions. 4 cases have been reported in Botswana and 2 in Hong Kong. Israel and Belgium have also detected cases of the new COVID-19 variant. Will the Omicron variant dodge immunity provided by vaccines? Is the question that everyone is now asking. Scientists are researching on how effective existing vaccines might just be against this new variant. The WHO has said there is little information on that matter. Breakthrough infections have been reported in South Africa among people who have received the Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer-BioNTech and Oxford's AstraZeneca vaccines. No deaths have been recorded as of yet. The 2 travelers in Hong Kong who tested positive were vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccine. What are the other variants of concern then? The WHO had designated 4 other variants of concern called the Alpha, the Beta, the Gamma and Delta variant. The WHO added variant Omicron as the 5th designated variant of concern on the 26th of November. How is India reacting to it? India has yet to take the extreme step of a travel ban on South Africa or neighboring countries from where these cases have been reported. The government, meanwhile, has asked states to rigorously screen and test travelers coming from South Africa, Botswana and Hong Kong. With alarm bells raised, several countries have announced travel bans while others are tightening border controls in what feels like a never-ending battle against COVID-19.
Now, Omicron is slowly but surely spreading its footprint right across the world. So far, not in India, but that is cold comfort because given how we work in this globalized economy, it's probably only a matter of time before Omicron represents itself here on Indian soil. Several cases are now being reported from countries, like I said, Canada, the UK, Belgium, apart from the outbreak in South Africa. The big question is, are COVID vaccines that you and I are taking working? Are they efficacious against this new Omicron variant? And if not, what next for us? Take a look at this report. Milan Sharma answers that question.
Can COVID vaccines fight the new mutant Omicron? Or will vaccines lose their protection? The scientist community is debating the possibilities. The variant Omicron has more than 30 to 50 mutations on its spike protein, and scientists are concerned.
In a single variant, we could notice that there are so many mutations has accumulated. So, and that's how that it has created as first interest and now a concern. Because only the spike protein, which has the receptor binding domain RBD, that spike protein itself has almost 32 mutations. It's a cumulative mutations, but in one variant, appearance of so many mutations in one shot definitely triggers a panic button.
Some go as far as to say that this could lead to decreased vaccine efficacy and immune escape.
Since this virus has mainly mutations that are in the spike protein, it will be very interesting to see how this variant performs in people who have received either the Covishield or the Covaxin, because if it is able to evade the spike responses, right? The antibodies against the spike protein. Vaccine like the inactivated vaccine may have induced antibodies that could still restrict the replication of the virus.
Not all hope is lost. Experts say it's unlikely that COVID vaccines will become completely redundant.
This is something needs to be experimentally validated before making any comment. But as such, as I was saying that usually that in any vaccines we uses multiple epitopes, and rarely all the epitopes can be evaded by the mutant virus. So it is not expected, but definitely needs to be checked. It hasn't come to India yet. But at this moment, it's a matter of concern. Definitely it's a VOC, but there is no reason to panic.
Some evidence suggests that Omicron may develop immune escape capabilities from COVID vaccines. Hence, vaccines may require an upgrade. Therefore, vaccine manufacturers across the world have begun testing this mutant variant in the race to stay a step ahead of the pandemic. Milind Sharma for India Today.
So the world is worried, you're worried, thousands, millions have, begun to make New Year plans, wondering about where to take their families next, getting back to work, hoping that they were seeing the end of this entire pandemic, and up pops Omicron to spoil everybody's day. We all have many questions in mind about what this new variant is all about and just how deadly is it. Let's answer all of your queries. I'm going to take each question that you've been sending us and I'm going to answer them as clearly as I possibly can. So listen very carefully. What is Omicron? It's a new super mutant COVID variant. Just like Delta and the others before it, it's a new variant of the coronavirus. Where was it spotted? It was first detected in South Africa, but like I just showed you, it's now been detected in many countries across the world, not in India so far. How many mutations does it actually represent? Over 30 changes in the spike protein, which is unusually high. So that's why it's been called a super mutant. How does it cause more serious illness? Well, South African doctors say mild infections so far. There are no serious implications or serious symptoms of the Omicron variant. Will COVID treatment remain effective? What you and I have been doing so far, physicians are currently unsure about this, and that's a little bit of the unsettling part. People are still sinking their teeth into what Omicron is really all about. Now, a natural question is Omicron more dangerous than the previous Delta and other variants that came before it? The WHO says that virulence of Omicron has not yet been confirmed, but it is a cause for concern across the world. How transmissible is Omicron strain? The bad news, it's much more transmissible than Delta, which is the dominant strain right now, but the WHO is still unsure how much more transmissible. Now, is vaccine helpful in containing Omicron? Tricky question. Vaccines remain key to reducing severe disease and death. Even for existing variants like Delta and others, vaccine is your best option. So please, not for a moment should you think that vaccines are not effective. Delta, Omicron, whatever it is that's going to come next, get your vaccination on priority, because even if you contract the virus, the chances are your symptoms will be milder. Now, is Omicron more deadly? Simple question. Studies are currently underway. So far, symptoms of those afflicted with the Omicron variant are thankfully mild. How can we stop Omicron from spreading? As I said, please take the vaccine if you haven't already, whatever vaccine you have access to. Continue all of the protocols that were there during all of the waves of COVID so far. Wear your mask, practice appropriate social distancing. Now, why is Omicron called Omicron? Where did this word actually come from? Well, as usual, the WHO bowed and bent to China. It skipped two Greek letters, Nu and Xi, and picked Omicron. Nu because it could be confused with the word N-E-W, or Nu, and Xi because it's the name of the Chinese president. So you can always trust the WHO to bend itself before China in order not to offend that country. Now let's take a listen to some of the reactions of experts on the new Omicron threat. These are Indian experts and they know exactly what they're talking about.
See, this is something needs to be experimentally validated before making any comment. But as such, as I was saying, that usually that in any vaccines we use multiple epitopes, and rarely all the epitopes can be evaded by the mutant virus. So it is not expected, but definitely needs to be checked. It hasn't come to India yet. But at this moment, it's a matter of concern. Definitely it's a VOC, but there is no reason to panic, but we should be careful like any other variant.
A lot may say, many people may say that this is a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, but, some countries are already imposing restrictions on travel from these countries where the variant has been found. Do you think it's time for India also do the same? Because better to be safe than be sorry. What do you think?
So when you close borders, how long do you close them for? And how do you make sure that you identify every infection that might potentially come into the country? If we look at the Omicron variant, we know that many people, the people in Hong Kong, for example, were picked up on their second, third, and fourth PCR tests. Now, just testing and tracing is clearly not enough. The incubation period, we say, is 2 to 14 days. But 2 to 14 days is the general distribution of how long it takes for someone to manifest with symptoms. And we have no idea unless, even if we test everybody who comes in from a foreign country, it's quite possible that we will miss some infection.
This is not the first time a variant with many mutations is being found. Not all variants with such mutations go on to become what we call successful viruses. In other words, a virus or a variant is considered successful if it replaces other existing variants. Now, that is a signal that's coming from South Africa. Even though it's very early, many scientists are concerned that the existing Delta variant is being outpaced by this new variant, which is identified in a few areas in and around South Africa.
क्योंकि चेतावनी मिल गई है, हमें बहुत जरूरी है आज के दिन ही पूरा ऐसा स्कीम बनाई जाए फ्यूचर के लिए. गवर्नमेंट, पब्लिक, मेडिकल प्रोफेशन, हेल्थ केयर वर्कर्स सब मिलके इसके ऊपर जो एक अपने को बचाने की क्या क्रिया होनी चाहिए, उसका पहले से ही हमें पूरा लेआउट करना चाहिए कि भाई ये हमारा प्लान है, क्योंकि इससे इस खतरे से हमें जितना जल्दी प्रोटेक्शन मिल जाए उतना ही अच्छा होगा.
This new variant, which is called as Omicron by the WHO now,
right,
is the predominant variant in a province in South Africa. Right. Within a span of 7 to 10 days, it has entirely replaced Delta. Delta would not allow any other variant to come in front of it. But the fact that it has actually replaced Delta completely does put questions in our mind about its infectivity, whether it is more virulent or not, and whether it spreads much more faster than the Delta variant or not.
That the number of mutations which are seen in this particular variant are far too many. In the spike region, that's the region of the virus which sticks onto human cells and then enters into body. There are more than 30 mutations. Within a week or 10 days in Pretoria and surrounding area, this virus completely overtook the Delta virus, which was previously the dominant virus.
Well, amidst this Omicron scare, many countries across the globe have imposed travel restrictions from South Africa and other African nations. For now, it could scale up to other countries as well. India too has issued new travel guidelines. Listen carefully for international travelers. Let me just list them up for you. The high-risk nations, the list of high-risk nations require a negative RT-PCR before departure. Other countries, negative RT-PCR before departure. Then you've got high-risk nations require, this is all for inbound passengers, remember. The high-risk nations is second RT-PCR test is required on arrival in India. Other countries, they require a sample testing on arrival in India. For high-risk nations, inbound passengers, genome sequencing in case they test positive. For For all other countries, genome sequencing in case they test positive. It's the same. High-risk nations, mandatory 7-day quarantine for all inbound passengers into India from the high-risk list of countries. Other countries, no mandatory quarantine at this point of time, but that list of countries may actually grow bigger. In terms of high-risk nations, third test for symptoms has to take place after 7 days. And in other countries, no further test obviously will be required. So there's a very important list. There's a high-risk countries list and there is the other countries. Many countries have imposed travel restrictions in view of this new COVID strain. Take a look at which are the main countries who've imposed these travel curbs. The United States, for instance, has banned travel from 8 African countries, including South Africa. Canada has travel restrictions for South Africa as well. Israel has banned entry of foreigners and quarantine for Israelis arriving from abroad. Japan has banned any new foreign arrivals in the country until the foreseeable future. The European Union, all of the countries, flights have been suspended at this time to South Africa. The United Kingdom, no flights again to South Africa. Russia, travel restrictions for South Africa. Australia has banned to and fro flights from 9 African countries, including South Africa at this point of time. We've got some breaking news. And India's Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia has just spoken out on the COVID Omicron variant threat. Scindia says the situation is being monitored closely in terms of resumption of commercial international flights after the emergence of the new COVID-19 variant Omicron. Remember, the Modi government had decided that it would resume international flights from December the 15th. Now that decision has basically been set adrift and it is unlikely that it will happen on that timeline. And this entire decision to resume commercial international flights at full scale from December 15th is being reviewed at this point of time. We've got a confirmation from Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia. That news break first, as always, here on India Today. Well, amidst the growth of the Omicron threat, the debate over the need for a booster dose, a third dose, has once again emerged, and no doubt you've been wondering about it. Now, while top immunologists have suggested a booster dose for those with weaker immunity or pre-existing conditions, the government has said they are still assessing the need for a third dose here in India. Here's more on that story.
Whether we call it a booster or a third dose or a fourth dose, it's very clear that we need to monitor the immune systems of immunocompromised individuals very, very carefully and make sure that they have some level of response to vaccine. We do need specific vaccination strategies, specific management strategies for them, and so far we have not had that.
There is a need and the time is now. That is the word from India's top vaccinologists, doctors, health experts on the third dose or the additional dose for those with poor immunity. At a time when the world has been confronted with the fifth variant of concern, Omicron, there is a growing demand for boosters in India, hoping it would offer further protection to those with compromised immunity. The government has so far said they're studying the need for the additional dose.
We'll continue to explore the timing and the need for the boosters going along. There are studies that are in the offing. There are studies that are ongoing, in fact, and there is data that's very systematically being tracked.
But the world is in a fix, say experts, and we can't wait, as vaccine hesitancy and complacency are also settling in.
There has been a vaccine hesitancy growing over past 1 month, and rather than having at least 1 crore vaccination per day, we are having 50-60 lakh per day. So we need to escalate vaccination. Number 2, we do not know whether this vaccine will protect this variant or not, and therefore we need to have newer research and see that this variant is also covered in the vaccination program.
Urgent need of a third dose, which is now being called as a booster dose, but should be a part of the primary immunization. I think the boosters are extremely important in India. We should have a plan, but the fact is we need to be extremely wary and careful with regards to new mutants.
The focus, however, of the government is on the second dose coverage. The Prime Minister on Saturday took a review meeting in which he took stock of the slow pace of the second dose coverage in India that stands at around 45%.
The National Technical Advisory Group on Immunization is all set to meet towards the end of this month to discuss the need for booster doses for the immunocompromised population in India. A decision is obviously going to be depending on the kind of threat India perceives vis-a-vis the fifth variant of concern. A lot is going to depend on how India is analyzing the situation to protect its immunocompromised population in the light of the World Health Organization identifying the fifth variant of concern. In New Delhi, Sneha Mordani for India Today.
Now, the Omicron threat has become the dominant talking point as far as COVID-19 is concerned, just when people were hoping that COVID was dropping off the front pages of newspapers. Netherlands has now detected 13 cases of the variant, and countries worldwide are scrambling to contain the spread. Here's the latest that we know.
The new Omicron coronavirus variant kept spreading around the world on Sunday, with 13 cases found in the Netherlands and 2 each in Denmark and Australia. It came even as more countries tried to seal themselves off by imposing travel restrictions. The Dutch health minister said 13 cases of the variant were found among passengers who were on flights from South Africa that arrived in Amsterdam on Friday. Authorities had tested all of the more than 600 passengers on those 2 flights and had found 61 coronavirus cases, going on to test those for the new variant. First discovered in South Africa, the variant has now been detected in several countries around the world, from Germany to Australia to Israel. Last week, Omicron was dubbed a variant of concern by the World Health Organization. It sparked worries around the world that it could resist vaccinations and prolong the nearly 2-year COVID-19 pandemic. Omicron is potentially more contagious than previous variants, although experts don't know yet if it will cause more or less severe COVID-19 compared to other strains. However, the chair of the South African Medical Association, Angelique Coetzee, said in her experience its symptoms were mild.
There's no reason for panicking as we don't see severely ill patients. It might change going forward. But the hype that's been created currently out there in the media and worldwide doesn't correlate with the clinical picture.
Countries have imposed a wave of travel bans or curbs on Southern Africa to try to stem the spread.
But what's in a name? What is this Omicron all about? Well, a lot apparently, or else the World Health Organization would not have chosen to tread so cautiously in such a cowardly manner and skip 2 letters of the Greek alphabet to jump from Delta to Omicron. In an apparent bid to save China, bend to China from embarrassment, the WHO basically skipped the Greek alphabet Xi because it's the name of the Chinese president. Here's a report on that.
We are announcing B11529 as a variant of concern named Omicron.
It is called Omicron, and the name assigned by the World Health Organization has sent the internet into a tizzy. The new variant, first detected in South Africa and initially called B.1.1.529, later renamed Omicron, was not actually expected. Even before the christening by the World Health Organization that happened on late evening of November 26th, the alphabet new was already trending. The reason? New and Xi. Yes, Xi, that sounds exactly like the name of Chinese President Xi Jinping, are the next Greek alphabets, and these would be the names to be used for a variant. But it appears that the World Health Organization decided to skip both New and Xi and decided to move to Omicron to avoid embarrassment to China. As is evident, the previous alphabets starting from Alpha to Mu have been used for variants of concern and variants of interest already. New and Xi were the next in line. Wall Street Journal language columnist Ben Zimmer took a dig at the World Health Organization. Paul Nuki, senior editor at The Telegraph, also tweeted saying the new had been skipped to avoid stigmatizing the region is what he had learned from a source at the WHO, and that all pandemics are inherently political. Texas Senator Ted Cruz said if the World Health Organization is this scared of the Chinese Communist Party, how can they be trusted to call them out the next time they're trying to cover up a catastrophic global pandemic?
The nomenclature which is being used for the new, I think the entire role of WHO has been coming into question for a long time, and the name is just a designation, but the fact is we need to be extremely wary and careful with regards to new mutants.
India today also sought a response from the World Health Organization on why they skipped new and after a G and jumped to Omicron when they themselves had decided to follow strictly the Greek alphabets, and whether that has got anything to do with possible stigmatization of China that they feared. But we have not received any response so far. In New Delhi, Sneha Murdani for India Today.
And I promise it's a guarantee from us here on India Today, which we take very seriously. We will tell you everything you need to know before anyone else in the most accurate manner to help you navigate your life better in these newly uncertain times surrounding the Omicron flare-up in the COVID-19 pandemic. That's something you must hold us to.